main issues in modern society is gender inequality in the United States. Men and women are constantly subjected to unrealistic and unresolved gender inequality issues due to social ideologies and historics about gender. Currently in the workplace, men and women are unaware on how to exercise their rights in case of harassment. Mental health is negatively stimulated, and there's still a pay gap, with men receiving more pay than women do. According to Afrina Arfa, who is an expert in cultural and social affairs, states that an imbalanced dynamic results in undesirable consequences, such as the unequal distribution of decision making within the family. Now with this, how are we going to address this overall issue of gender inequality?
So to go alongside with that, our question is, what are possible ways of reducing the negative impact of traditional gender roles on society in the United States? And our solution is to take legal action to protect at-risk genders and prohibit gender discrimination.
Jana R. Goodwill, a PhD candidate in social work and psychology, states that help seeking is a violation to traditional gender norms and is a barrier to health prevention and intervention. This quote about men's mental health relates back to this graph because, as from the CDC, which represents suicide rates in the United States between the years 2001 and 2021. As you can see, the male suicide rates is much higher than the female suicide rates. This declining trend in men's mental health has been linked by multiple different psychologists and multiple different studies to masculine norms in the United States. This is very important once you consider the cost of therapy and health insurance in the United States. One 1-hour therapy session in the United States will usually cost between $100 and $200 without insurance, but can be between $20 and $30 with insurance. This cost does not include the fact that health insurance can cost between $500 and $905 monthly in the US, which brings the total cost for one therapy session to be above $950 for some people. And a very important key is that not all health insurance will cover mental health visits. This is why part of the legal action we would like to take in order to stop sexism in the U.S. is to try to get health insurance more affordable for everyone, or to make health insurance cover both mental and physical health visits.
According to the National Equal Pay Task Force, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978 helped strengthen employment protections for women who were pregnant, had given birth, or had related medical conditions. The effects of this act can be seen in this graph by PhD holder Elise Gold. From the year 1979 to 1974, the gender wage gap has decreased greatly. But since then to the present, there has been little to no progress in closing it. And based on the effects of the past policy, implementing another one could help decrease the wage gap even more and potentially close it, benefiting those who experience it in the United States.
An example of a modern industry that still perpetuates these gender-based norms in relation to pay gaps and mental health issues is the modeling industry. Dr. Jocelyn Crowley, who is a current professor at Edward J. Bolton School of Public Policy, states that the fashion industry perpetuates gender-based power between men with power and the women models. Currently, there are no policies in place to protect women models from harassment in the workplace, developing eating disorders on the job, and being hurt from unsafe conditions because of the photo shoots. Modeling is one of the only modern industries that still perpetuates this gender-based power, and so in order to help simulate this change we need to put policies in place in order to protect female and males. Olivia Fleming, who is a PhD in sociology, addresses how a lack of protection in the modeling industry is not a way to simulate change. In order to fully simulate this policy changes and to implement these laws in order to protect both genders, we need to hold abusers accountable to create this change.
So a classical example of traditional gender roles and negative impact would be within the house, within a heterosexual relationship. So Janelle Federoff, a specialist in social sciences and international surveys, cites married women spend an average of 24.5 hours on domestic work and childcare, whereas men spend an average of 16.5 on domestic work and childcare. This is also proven in this graph. You can see that women do significantly more work than men. And one way of taking legal action to help close the egalitarian work difference would be to make childcare more affordable so that both genders, but specifically women, could focus more on their career and themselves versus having to worry about who's going to pay for their kid. So Carissa Lee, a researcher at Rochester University, cites essentialist beliefs about gender are linked to relatively inflexible, deterministic, and dispositional accounts of human behavior. Traditional views, specifically about gender, do not help promote equality, so our solution is to take legal action by making healthcare more affordable and insurance more affordable so that the stigma around men's mental health can get fixed, to have a similar policy in place to help decrease the wage gap even further or completely close it, and to make sure that still gender-based careers such as modeling, there's protections in place for at-risk and vulnerable genders, as well as making childcare more affordable so that people can focus more on their careers and themselves.
So some implications if we were to pass a law in order to completely eliminate sexism would be that it would reduce negative mental health issues and would help close wage gaps completely. And this would overall contribute to benefiting society and create more gender equality. However, there are some limitations like time. Passing laws takes a lot of time, and there are still stereotypical gender norms that have been around for centuries. So it's more based on individual ideologies about gender, and so in order to fully simulate change, we would have to think about how people's mindsets would change when this law is passed. So we would have to, overall, this law would be hard to achieve without passing it.
Building off of what Zeta said, some pros are that it would bring equal pay, helping families who experience a wage gap achieve financial stability. It would also balance family tasks, reducing harmful stereotypes about gender, and it would benefit all genders, not just men and women, but also those in the LGBTQ+ community. Some cons are that gender hierarchy could still be present, because it's hard to get rid of all bias and traditional ideology. It's also very difficult to achieve, as legal action has to take a lot of steps to be passed.
One of our alternative solutions to legal action was to educate younger children about gender stereotypes and sexism, primarily about what parts of gender stereotypes could be good or bad, along with sexism. Multiple studies by developmental psychologists prove that children in the pre-operational stage of development, which is ages 2 to 7, are more likely to understand and comprehend and keep in information that is handed to them from peers, parents, and their teachers. But we decided that legal action is a better solution because we cannot forcefully change people's personal opinions. It is up to the individual to decide which parts about certain gender stereotypes are actually good or bad.
Another alternate solution that we had was to spread awareness about gender discrimination and sexism. And although this is a very beneficial way that would reach a lot of people, we decided that it was already being done. Some current ways of spreading awareness are through social media platforms, communication initiatives such as newspapers and television, printed materials like billboards and brochures, and community events like a protest or a public meeting.
And just to recap back to our solution is to pursue legal measures to safeguard vulnerable genders and prevent gender discrimination.
Hold on 1 second. Zeta, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Aaliyah's findings.
So Aaliyah's findings were based on the pay gap, and I think that my subject correlated with that as well. Mine was more based on like work-based harassment, but also the gender hierarchy in place for modeling. And Aaliyah's was just more centralized around the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978 and also the pay gap as well. And so I think that she opened my eyes more to like the different differentials in the pay gap as well, and so that changed my thinking on my subject as well.
Maya, describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussions.
So we had a lot of debate with our solution because our solution is not the most easy to achieve. And so there was debate whether we should educate people and all that. So once we came to the conclusion that our legal action would be the most impactful, we had to specifically lens our research through that and find the best evidence and be able to connect them all together.
Aaliyah, in the future, what changes would you suggest to group norms, and how would you expect that to improve the team presentation?
I think a change to our group norms that would be very beneficial is adding more communication, because a lot of us were gone for sports or sickness, and just knowing what we needed to do while we were gone or what we needed to catch up on when we get back would help us, I think, enhance our presentation in just knowing all the information better, like as a group, and just being able to finish it in a timely manner without being rushed.
Thanks. Come on, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's solution or conclusion.
I feel like Zeta's perspective about the modeling industry really broadened my own, especially mainly considering that hers was based on the modeling industry, specifically on how the women were being affected, while my research was specifically about men's mental health. And I feel like her research about how women were being affected provided a much broader perspective of my own.